is AEW successful? Why is Tony Khan running his promotion better than Vince McMahon and Bruce Pritchard are running Monday night and Friday night? Long-term booking.
What is going on, guys? Thank you so very much for stopping by the channel this evening. I got a little bit of extra for you. It is Thursday, December 30th, 2021. I am JD from New York, and I'm back. And this is the OTS venue. Follow me on social media at JDfromNY206. That's Twitter and Instagram. Hit that subscribe button down below. Turn on the bell for all notifications. And make sure you guys hit that thumbs up, man. I'm back. So let's try for at least 1,000 likes on today's OTS Extra. We're going to talk about primarily Toni Storm. And I was away at a undisclosed location. Destination unknown, says Ruby Soho. And obviously, it happens every time I go away, man, or whatever I'm doing. I'm away from my desk. I'm away from the podcast, something. It's almost like Vince McMahon and Bruce Pritchard want to mess with me in some way. There's always something that happens. And in this case, there's a WWE release. And it wasn't an abundance of releases. It was one release in particular, which I am not surprised by whatsoever. I actually called this on Friday night when I did the Christmas Eve edition of the podcast on Friday night for SmackDown right here on OTS. I said it after her match with Charlotte Flair that I would not be surprised if Toni Storm was let go by WWE. And what happened, lo and behold, I was once again, as per usual this year, nobody will admit it. I mean, give me a break, but I've been right on literally everything I've spoken about this year. Toni Storm released by WWE. Now, my first inclination in the entire situation was they let her go because she was black and gold. They let her go because she embodied what NXT was. She was let go because WWE continues to erase everything that is Paul Levesque. Now, that actually is still happening. I don't want you guys to be in a situation where you're hearing it from some other podcast geek in the community that's not the case. It absolutely is the case. They are actively and still actively erasing everything that is Paul Levesque. But this is not one of those situations. Toni Storm was released by WWE, and I got all the news and notes about that today. Updates from Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful.com and other reports from PW Insider reveal that Toni Storm had, in fact, asked for her release from the WWE and that she had flown home herself after the last house show she worked for the company, which was a triple threat match against Charlotte Flair and Sasha Banks. Now, Fightful's report also added that the internal memo, which was sent out by WWE regarding Storm's release, did not cite budget cut as the reason, or as has been the case with many of the recent talent cuts. This was not a part of the quote-unquote budget cuts, but who's to say that Toni Storm wasn't going to be a part of the next budget cuts? Because I actually had a very strong feeling that she would be a part of the next budget cut. I don't want to say that that was going to be the case, But you can kind of see by watching the show that the writing was on the wall, and it's not really that far-fetched for anybody to think that the way she's been booked on WWE television. So she might have already seen the writing on the wall for herself that she would have been a part of the next wave of budget cuts. She would have been a part of that next set of Nick Khan Man releases. But that was, according to the reports, not the reason for this particular release. The report added that many within WWE were blindsided by the news of Toni Storm requesting her release from WWE. Now, this actual story that I'm about to read to you comes from Cassidy Haynes of bodyslam.net. He says this, and I quote, "I asked around, and my sources confirmed to me that Toni Storm did indeed fly out last night following the WWE live event, and added that she paid out of her own pocket to fly herself home. I was told, turns out Toni didn't exactly ask for her release. She just up and quit. She worked a triple threat match at a house show and then paid out of her own pocket to fly herself home. Additionally, it was stressed to me that WWE they were handling it as her asking for her release and them granting it. Because after so many talent cuts were released due to budget cuts this year, it was a meh situation. It was described as meh. Now, I don't really understand that. I mean, if you're WWE and you valued somebody like Toni Storm, or you desired somebody like Toni Storm on your roster, wouldn't the first thing that the company would do is pick up the fucking phone and ask, what the hell is going on? How can we do to rectify this situation and make you happy? WWE, according to none of these reports, even went out of their way to see if the woman was all right and why she got up and just bought her own plane ticket home and basically said, fuck you, to the company. None of that is in the report. To further back up what Sapp and his report stated of the roster being blindsided by the news, per a female WWE talent, this was quoted and said, "It's fucking wild. She's just gone. Didn't even really tell anyone," end quote. I was also told that Storm may have asked for her release today, but she straight up flew herself home after working the triple threat match last night and quit. Took everybody by surprise. That was an additional note in Fightful's report. So Dave Meltzer talked about it this morning on the Observer Live. Meltzer discussed the Toni Storm situation with Brian Alvarez. As previously noted, obviously, as you guys already know, Storm flew herself home Wednesday morning after Tuesday night's house show in Washington, D.C. She was scheduled to be in the show or at the show in Baltimore. Meltzer said that he heard that burnout was a reason why she wanted out of the company. Meltzer says this, and I quote, "As far as her reasons and why she left, the only thing I heard was burnout, essentially," Meltzer said. "I heard from some people there, and it was kind of the feeling if you watch the buildup of her match with Charlotte and that feud with Charlotte, and you're probably, if you were her, and you think about your job as opposed to just going out there and doing your job, you probably ask a lot of questions like, why did I get pie thrown in my face when I'm the babyface? Even though she did get the revenge, why, when you're building up the big match, do I get my ass kicked and win by disqualification? Why did I not win that match?" The one thing with WWE is they are about feeding their top stars. They have their protective stars, end quote. Now, Meltzer went on to say that the feud was all about building Charlotte Flair, and they tend to do more to protect them sometimes, and that is what happened in this situation. Meltzer also added the way that she was booked could be a part of it. Could be a part of it, Dave? I think that has everything to do why Miss Storm flew herself home and said, fuck you, to WWE. Or perhaps she'll say something somewhere down the line. There's probably a 90-day non-compete involved. Under any circumstance, Meltzer says he's trying to find out more, but she's gone and out of nowhere. End quote. WWE typically does not grant releases immediately, so it is interesting to see them quickly grant Storm's release. I'll tell you why in a second. It's unclear if this was a conditional release that will prevent her from signing with another major company after 90 days. So, I know a lot of people, while I was away, was asking for my opinion on this. And you guys know how I feel about women's professional wrestling in WWE. I think it's an utter shit show. If you look at SmackDown's roster now with the release of Toni Storm and the likes of Shotzi Blackheart not being used to her full potential, which is another one I'm afraid of being released eventually when the next wave of budget cuts is about to come over all of us in WWE. They have Aaliyah and Shayna Baszler and Xia Li, which is, I mean, let's be fucking real. That's not going to last more than 2 months. Give me a fucking break. You got Natalya. You got Naomi, right? You got Sonya Deville. How many legit women superstars do they have on that brand? Except Charlotte Flair and Sasha Banks. There's not one single female that they have on that roster that they've actually cared for and built up to be on the level of a Sasha Banks and a Charlotte Flair. But I'll tell you what, Bruce. I'll tell you what, Vince and people power. Right? What happened? You got someone in Toni Storm that you theoretically left in catering. For how long? About 2 months, 3 months, maybe longer. You left her in catering. And then you bring her back to do what? She was in a Queen of the Ring tournament. And what happened to Toni Storm in that tournament, which, again, realistically, should have been used to build up somebody like a Toni Storm so that you position her as a face of the division when you are ready for someone like Toni Storm. What did WWE do with Toni Storm in that tournament? She lost to Zelina Vega in about 90 seconds. And then what happened? They kept her off TV for another X amount of weeks, and then they bring her back in a feud with Charlotte because now we need to get Charlotte Flair over. I didn't know Charlotte Flair needed to be put over. How many fucking title reigns does she have that she needs to be put over? I didn't know we had this new blooming rookie on the main roster named Charlotte Flair that needed help to be put over. Let me tell you something. For all these fucking imbeciles out there, Charlotte Flair is in a position and is in a position now where she should be putting women over. But that's not the case. And it all starts with management at the top. If management doesn't see it, then how the fuck is anybody else going to see it? And this is another situation on why I hate Charlotte Flair as a professional. She doesn't know how to do business. The only business that Charlotte Flair knows how to do is business for Charlotte Flair. Oh, we got to put Charlotte Flair over. Toni Storm. Poor Toni Storm needs to put over Charlotte Flair. Where? Where and why is what I want to know. So then WWE puts her in this feud with Charlotte Flair. They begin this feud by having Toni Storm challenge Charlotte Flair. And then WWE, Bruce, I'm sure, was spearheading this operation because that's exactly who fucking hates women's wrestling. Bruce and John Laurinaitis and all these other fucking out-of-touch old suit and ties on WWE's behalf. They have Toni Storm engage in a feud with Charlotte Flair. And the first thing we see is Toni Storm in a babyface role with Charlotte Flair playing the heel. And Toni Storm is not pied once, she's pied twice by Charlotte Flair. There's no sort of retaliation. There's no semblance of, I'm going to go kick your ass and I'm going to put a stop to this. They flat out embarrassed Toni Storm to a fucking point where I coined the phrase, they cream pied her. Bruce and Vince and Johnny Laurinaitis cream pied Toni Storm on SmackDown and made her look like she was a fucking thumbnail on some X-rated porn site with the fucking pie dripping down her face. And then WWE the next week has Toni Storm come out. She's like prancing around like fucking Doink the Clown. And she gets a pie and she throws it in Charlotte's face. Then we have a one-on-one match where Toni Storm gets her ass beat in a championship contender match, which, by the way, those matches need to fucking die in a goddamn fucking fire. Championship contenders match is the laziest fucking booking you'd ever see. Toni gets her ass beat. She wins the match via DQ, via referee stoppage. She now all of a sudden is the number one contender. Then we get some tag team match where she teams with Sasha Banks and she pins Charlotte in that match. Then we get the championship match and the match is not very good at all. And then she loses. And the last visual we see of Toni Storm is her crying on the ring apron, and it was in that moment I watched the show and I'm like, this woman is done. This woman is done. It was written all over her face. I'm not some Nostradamus. All you have to do is watch the show. Toni was done after that. Then the days that followed, I hope you guys are aware of this. And I'm going to make you aware of this right now. But if you guys don't read the dirt sheets, you wouldn't know what happened. WWE had Toni Storm the very next tour. I guess it was after the holidays, after Christmas. WWE had this poor woman chasing the 24/7 title and Dana Brooke at some random house show in Tampa, Florida. And then they put her in a triple threat match against Sasha and Charlotte, where she's clearly in that match to take the pinfall because she's the rookie and Sasha and Charlotte are the veterans. And then after that, obviously you guys know the story. She bought her own way home, flew home, told the company, go fuck yourself, and quit. WWE left this woman in catering for 3 to 4 months, only for her to engage in a feud over cream pies with Charlotte, where she did not look like a credible contender to anybody. Never mind Charlotte, anybody. You do realize that this woman suffers greatly from mental health, and she's been an advocate for mental health. Can you imagine what somebody like Toni Storm is going through when she's sitting in catering for 3 to 4 months before she's even recognized as a performer in this women's division that so desperately needs fucking talent? Can you imagine what somebody like Toni Storm, who suffers through mental health, is thinking? She's not good enough. She's not pretty enough. Her tits are not big enough. Her ass is not big enough. She's not thin enough. Can you imagine what this woman is thinking, sitting in the back, suffering through fucking catering, thinking that's all she's good for? And then she gets to TV, and the first storyline you engage this woman in is making her a fucking X-rated porno thumbnail by having pies thrown in her face? Is that all she's good for? I hope you do realize that this woman that you saw in the last 5 months, I guess the last month where she's actually been used, you do realize that if you go back and watch Toni Storm from NXT UK, that the NXT UK version of Toni Storm resembles nothing of the main roster Toni Storm that you've been accustomed to seeing. That Toni Storm, even in the Mae Young Classic, before she got brought to NXT UK, that Toni Storm was hungry. That Toni Storm was the Toni Storm coming off of a career in Japan and winning titles and trophies and having her work admired by many in the industry. Toni Storm was going to go on to be one of the most successful female athletes in this sport. And then she gets signed to WWE. Triple H takes great care of her. Shawn Michaels takes great care of her. And then here she is on the main roster, and she's not even recognized by anybody on the main roster. The only thing that they want to do is throw fucking pie in her face. That is the story of Toni Storm. That is the story of somebody 27 years old, probably even younger than that. Probably even, how old is she, 24? Probably younger than 23. This woman has come to WWE to hopefully lend her talents, which everybody admires, in the company, and WWE doesn't even recognize it. In a fucking day and age right now where WWE needs women stars to step up and take the spot of a Sasha and a Charlotte and a Bayley and an Alexa and fucking anybody else, Becky, or anybody else that they want to deem superstar. How long do you think Becky Lynch and Sasha Banks and Charlotte Flair are going to, A, be at the top of their division, and B, how long do you think people are going to want to see those women and not want to see new budding superstars to come along and eventually take their spots? You do realize that the money you left on the table by just not even pushing the talent that you've been blessed with in NXT and building it up to make it the next face of the company, to potentially go on and take a spot from Becky and a spot from Charlotte. There was no money in a Toni Storm versus Sasha Banks feud. There was no money in a Toni Storm versus Asuka feud. There was no money in a Toni Storm versus Charlotte feud legitimately. There was no money in a Toni Storm versus Becky Lynch feud, or Bayley, or anybody else that you want to put in the ring that knows what the fuck they're doing with Toni Storm. I don't get it. I don't really understand how you just leave that money on the table. This is utterly ridiculous to me. It really is. Women's wrestling in WWE is absolutely fucking atrocious. Because they have a one-track mind, and that's all it is. If it's not the four horsewomen, WWE doesn't give a shit. And you know what? If you don't give a shit, I'm not gonna give a shit. See, the fucked up thing is, how many times do I tell you guys that if you don't have a solid fucking plan for somebody, why are you calling them up to the main roster for them to sit around until you are ready to use them? Toni Storm sat around for 3 fucking months plus to sit around and do nothing while you called her up from NXT, where she could have actually been used and she could have benefited from that, and the brand and that division could have benefited from it. No, you think that pulling her out of NXT and leaving her drafted on SmackDown without being used is the best use of Toni Storm. I don't understand the mentality in this company. I really, really, really don't understand what the fuck they're on. And the thing is, you know, Toni Storm is not somebody that's going to sit around idle and not find work. You do realize at the end of the day that WWE is making AEW's potential women's division better than anything they could possibly do with a Becky and a Charlotte, a Bayley and a Sasha. WWE is actively making AEW's women's division the best women's division in all of North America. That's exactly what they're doing. You do realize with the talent that they have right now, led by Britt Baker, led by Thunder Rosa, you got a Chris Statlander, you got a Riho, right? I'm not big on Riho, but she's in discussion there. She's a vital part of that division. Hikaru Shida, Serena Deeb, Ruby Soho, Jade Cargill, who I'm not really a big fan of. The potential's there. She's got some work to do, but Jade Cargill and the potential of Jade Cargill, Nyla Rose, Taynara Conti, and whoever else WWE has let go potentially could end up with AEW. Ember Moon, Taya Valkyrie, Tegan Nox, Toni Storm. And I'm sure I'm missing one, or Mia Yim. You don't think Tony Khan is looking at all these potential women that are just floating out there in free agency. WWE has released so many fucking women in a day and age where they desperately need new women's faces. And they're just allowing Tony Khan to just fly underneath the radar. And within 3 months, this man and AEW could have the best women's division in all of North America. And I'll be sitting here telling them to fuck your Sasha Banks and your Charlotte and your Becky and your Bayley and your fucking makeshift women's division that's being held together with fucking Scotch tape right now. Does that not ring out to you as important? Oh, but Tony Khan can't sign everybody. AEW can't sign everybody. He absolutely could. He could do whatever the fuck he wants. I didn't know we had bookkeepers for AEW all of a sudden, monitoring what Tony Khan can and cannot spend. WWE had somebody in Toni Storm who could absolutely, in every sense of the word, be exactly what they need. Someone to be a Charlotte Flair in that division. Someone to lead that division. Someone to be the face of women's wrestling. Someone who was young, beautiful, and able to gravitate the young male audience that they're so desperately seeking to WWE's side, and they just let it go. She was completely and utterly embarrassed. She was completely and utterly career disappointed. And she was like, if this is all I'm worth, then fuck these people. I'm making my own exit. Go fuck yourself. Now, there are people in the community that don't like the actions that she did. They don't like the course of action that she took. You know what? I'm here to tell you, good for her. Because if I was embarrassed the way that she was, and WWE did to me what they did to her by keeping her idle and not really utilizing her and having this attitude of, she's just another blonde with an accent that we don't really like to push anyway, but now we're forced to push it. I would have did the same fucking thing. She was career burnt out. Meltzer used the term burnt out. People were blind. What are you blindsided by? What the fuck are you blindsided by? She's gone. Did you expect her to stay when she was made into a fucking Pornhub thumbnail? What are you fucking kidding me? Somebody with the career accolades and the praise of everybody in the industry. That's the best for Toni Storm? I don't blame her one bit for fucking getting on a plane that she paid for and quit the fucking company. Good for her. Good for her. The grass isn't always greener on the WWE side of the fence. More and more people are becoming aware of that. By the end of the fucking year, WWE will have this fucking notion about them that they're really not a place where people want to be. And that's been showcased all year. With all the complaints about what they've done to people who were there. Look at the latest Karrion Kross interview with Renee Paquette. I mean, it is fucking mind-boggling what these people do. It's unreal to me. It really is unreal to me. WWE just let Toni Storm walk out of the company and nothing of a follow-up. Do you want to know why WWE didn't follow up with Toni Storm? Because she was a Paul Levesque girl. That's exactly why. If WWE found any value in Toni Storm, they would have been on the phone with her to get her back instead of just fucking releasing her after she paid her own way to get the fuck out of there. Why didn't WWE go out there and ask what Toni Storm was up to? Why? There was no desire to go out there and get her back. No, don't go. Why didn't she get a phone call from the company? Because WWE, again, is actively trying to erase everything that Paul Levesque brought into the company. She was too indie for them. Paul Levesque loved her. She was black and gold. She represented the NXT women's division. They don't want none of it. They don't want none of it. Anybody else that was a part of that brand? Give it time, folks. They'll all be gone, just like Toni Storm. Whether they get released or they follow the same path as Toni Storm and just get up and leave. What a disgrace WWE's handling of women's wrestling in the company is absolutely fucking embarrassing, to a point where WWE actually has the worst women's division in all of pro wrestling. Nobody gives a shit about women's wrestling there, and case in point, they let one of the best in the world just walk out without even an attempt to see what was wrong and maybe an effort to sway her back to the company. They just let her go. What a fucking disgrace. Bruce Pritchard, Vince McMahon, John Laurinaitis, and everybody else in charge of that fucking company that was having a hand in writing what they did for Charlotte, their mentality about Charlotte. Oh, we gotta put Charlotte Flair over. All of you should be fucking fired. You're a fucking disgrace to the sport of professional wrestling. Every single fucking one of you. Every one of you. You should be fucking ashamed of yourself. You don't give a fuck about this business. You don't give a fuck about this company. The only thing you give a shit about is the money you're making from every one of us. You don't give a fuck about building a better product, because that's all we want in the end. You know who's building a better product? TK is. You know where they're all going? They're going to TK. Why? Because they're actually treated like human fucking beings while they work for Tony Khan. I don't know what the fuck you people are doing, but I'm telling you right now, man, I don't know if this is the straw that broke the camel's back for me as far as talent releases is concerned, but this is one of the most mind-boggling decisions I have ever seen in this company, especially when they need women's wrestling. Every single one of them should be ashamed of themselves. Every single one of them. I'm getting out of here, guys. Hopefully that was a monumental return after 4 days. Let me know what you guys think about that down below. If you enjoyed that, hit that thumbs up. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button down below. Turn on the bell for all notifications. And follow me on social media at JDfromNY206. I will be here, man, getting the extras out. And we'll be live for the first live stream back. And for the first live stream of the year, man, with day one on Saturday night. Make sure you guys RSVP to the OTS venue. It's going to be a good one. Hit that thumbs up, and I'll see you guys tomorrow with more extra right here on Off the Script. I'll see you guys later.